Your workout is not your job because it lacks intention and lacks intentionality behind it for the goals that you have in front of you. And then number two, you're giving up a lot of benefits of having time specifically allocated to bettering yourself. That's what Brett just said. Now I'm going to give you my 2 cents because we were not recorded that. I forgot to hit record and we were just live. So if you're not
Dang,
seeing this
dude.
live, you missed his wonderful monologue at the front. But I think that you're right. And I think that my workout is a job, is my job. I think that's a hell of a cop out. I think that's something that people use as an excuse to not put in more time. And it's probably because they're tired, because they feel overworked, because they feel like they're underpaid, because they feel like they don't have time with their family. But tough shit, wake up earlier, right? And if you're like, James, I don't have enough, I don't get enough sleep to wake up, drive to the gym, drive back, shower, and then go to work. Cool. Then work out at home. Okay. You have 30 minutes that you can allocate if it means that much to you before or after work, even if it's at home body weight. We're not expecting you. And Brett, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not expecting anyone. I can only really speak for myself. I'm not expecting anyone to go to the gym for 2 hours a day after you work a full-time job, especially a manual labor job. And in fact, if you're working a manual labor job that's predominantly upper body or predominantly lower body, I'm probably going to have you do a little bit less exercise related to that type of movement or those type of movement patterns that you're doing on a consistent basis there, and overload the other side so that you get balanced out a little bit. Yeah, it might take a little bit longer, but we're going to work with where you're at. Dude, if you're a here's the thing. If you're like, let's say you're a Delta, you're on the ramp, right? Here's a good example. You're throwing bags on the ramp all day. There's a high probability that you're going to be expending way more calories than you realize, right? There's also a high probability that I'm not going to have you doing a bunch of steady state cardio in your workouts because you're on your feet the whole damn day doing stuff. I'm probably going to have you do specific strengthening, more compound lifts so we can cut down on the time, and moving closer to, RPE 7, 8, 9 3 times a week. And I'm probably going to also try to put them on the days where you're not working. You might have them overlap on a work day at some point, but a coach can work with you. And if you're not working with a coach, you can work with yourself. You just have to stop negotiating what the goal is. Like, we're all busy, right? And the fact of the matter is, you're sitting across from me. You're married. I'm not married. But there's plenty of women, right, that are working, plus mothering, plus we're pregnant, plus handling things around the household if you have those kind of gender roles in the house, plus they carried the baby the whole time and they still work out. So I'm
Right.
telling you right now that if a single mother that does all of those things can still work out, so can you. And it's not to say that they're not capable, but it actually proves that they're probably a little bit more determined, a little bit more
Mhm.
disciplined than the rest of us. Because if you can do all that and still go, that speaks to your character.
Yeah, and there's a lot there that I wanted to kind of dissect a little bit because like you did just touch on this, but like, I don't have kids, you don't have kids, I'm sure a lot of people will say like, oh, I have kids, these guys don't understand. I mean, I have one client who runs a business, has 4 kids that she takes care of and takes care of her house and crushes every single workout we program for her. Two, you're the biggest fallacy I think that is out there when it is revolved around jobs and times and things like that is the fact that people think the only way for me to work out is if I work out 2 hours a day, like you said, 7 days a week, like we've talked about. That's not the case. I feel like it's like pulling teeth just to get people to take a 20-minute walk. And that, I mean, that says a lot about, a lot of things that I don't want to get into, but 20 minutes, just taking 20 minutes, do a couple push-ups. If you can, like, just like in the words of Joe Rogan, if you can drag yourself through a day at work, you can drag yourself through a workout. If you got 20 minutes to do some push-ups, you got 20 minutes to do some air squats, you got body weight. You don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to have equipment. You can go on a walk. You can do push-ups. You can do sit-ups. You can do squats. And then just allocating that time and being intentional about it to get your workout in is gonna get you to a much better place than just saying, oh, I moved today at work, so I'm good. You're gonna be able to learn how to show up for yourself. And when you're able to learn how to show up for yourself, you'll be able to show up for your kids, your wife or husband, your family, your job. Like you'll just be better overall if you can learn to dedicate time to being somewhat productive towards your health every couple of days or 3 days a week.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note that it's delayed gratification. You have to be on board for you not seeing results tomorrow. And in fact, when you have more stuff going on like that, your progress will probably be a little slower because your recovery is not where it needs to be. Your nutrition is probably not completely dialed in. Your supplementation is not dialed in to bridge the gaps. You probably aren't getting all micronutrients that you need to be optimal. However, we're not here to do things perfect. We're here to do things messy. We're here to do things and actually do them. So it's
Yeah,
not
we're
always
here to
going to
do
be,
things.
it's not always, it's not going to be, oh man, I got the perfect amount of sleep last night. I feel great. I have no congestion. I ate all the right foods yesterday. I hit my protein for 27,000 days in a row. And I walked every day and I've lifted 3 times a week for the last 20 years. Bruh, there are very few people that can even say a quarter of what I just said and be honest about it. And that's okay, dude. That's okay. You have a North Star and you have a desire and you have a goal that you're trying to hit, which is going to require you to be more consistent than not. But more consistent than not is 51-49. It's not 100-0.
Yeah, you're gonna suck. You're gonna suck at it. You're probably gonna have a really hard time learning how to get all this stuff figured out. But you're definitely not gonna hit that goal if you keep telling yourself that you work out at work. You know what I mean? You're definitely
Facts.
not like if you look at yourself and you're unhappy in the and look, if you're again, like we've said this before, if you're happy with where you're at and you're that's what you know, you get a good workout at work and you don't have any goals or whatever, you're cool. This isn't, we're not talking to you. But if you're unhappy with where you're at and that's the excuse that you keep telling yourself, then something needs to change. And you're going to suck, you're going to be bad at it, but the more you do it, the more you learn, the better you get at it. I mean, I've been doing this for 12 years. I was really shitty at doing exercising and learning about nutrition for probably 6 of those 12 years. I've still to this day learn a lot, even just through experiencing other people's problems that maybe I didn't experience. But like we all have a different story. We all have to go through this stuff and we got to figure it out. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's like, it's not going to happen if you're not going to do anything. Change doesn't happen unless you change, you know?
Yeah, it sounds so trite, but it's very true. And so I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I think that people have to, like, if you don't like where you're at, like you're saying, and you want to change, I mean, you're gonna have to sacrifice some in the short run, right? But eventually you're gonna prove to yourself that you can do it and more, and it will be worth it if the goal was yours and it wasn't given to you, you know? And so I think that getting out of the trap that your workout is your job. Man, I drive a forklift around and every now and again I lift a box or two. That's enough. Like I'm on my feet all day. People are like, I walk 20,000 steps a day. Got it. But your body, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not squatting with weight in your hands. You're not lunging with weight in your hands. So you can move forward and backwards with your body weight. Yippee ki
Yeah.
Love it. That's not enough. Not
Mm-hmm.
for long term. Not if you're talking about long term health and staving off injury, staving off, um, staving off the aging effects, right?
Right.
The muscle loss, the bone density loss, like that requires more than just walking, dude. Walking might be a great intervention for someone that's 90, that's been doing it for 20 years on top of other things, and maybe that's all they can do at that point. But if you're 25, you got to be doing more than walking, my guy.
Yeah, and I mean, like, what happens when you get a new job and your eating habits continue? You know, what happens then? I mean, it's like I see it all the time with former athletes, former military, guys who worked manual jobs that then went and got an IT job. You know, it's like you see it constantly. These guys, they're and women too, but like the eating habits stay and the activity level decreases, and in that time, you didn't learn any way of like keeping an activity level up. And I mean, that's like a whole other thing that you're going to have to deal with. And then on top of that, you're going to have to deal with it when you're 35, 45, 55, and it's even harder to deal with it than when you're 25. So you might as well learn how to do it when you're younger. And even if you are past those ages, I mean, there's still time to figure that stuff out. It's just going to be a little bit more difficult.
Yeah. And I think that, compound interest begets compound results. Right? If you decide to start this at 70, your 90 is going to look different than somebody that started at 20. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't start it at 70, right? Doesn't mean that at all. The best time to plant the tree is today, and the best time Well, the best time ever to plant the tree was 20 years ago. The second best time to plant it is today.
Correct.
You know, and I don't know who said that. It's an age-old axiom, but it's something that I think stands true. That like, if you procrastinated up to this point, today's the day that it stops. Right?
Yeah.
It would have been better to do it XYZ. It would have been more optimal to do it when you were in your 20s. Yeah, absolutely. But the majority of people that you see in their 40s that are fit to hell, that are not surgeried up all over the place, they've been working out for 20 years. They're the
Yeah.
people that did start in their 20s and kept it on, right?
Yeah.
Because they wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes some time. Your workout is not your job. I mean, my mom, I'll give you a great example here before we wrap. My mom's flight attendant, right? She works purser, so she's like lead on planes. She puts people's bags in the in the compartments day in, day out, pushes the cart, right? Loads stuff, moves stuff, helps people with their bags all over the place. Not one time have I ever heard my mom say, "Oh, my workout is my job." You know, that woman comes home and does CrossFit 5 days a
Mm-hmm.
week.
Mm-hmm.
5 days a week. Now you don't have to do that, but she does that. And then she'll do yard work. And then on the weekend, she'll be doing house projects like redoing the fence or redoing half the deck, right? Or
Yeah.
repainting or hanging siding or whatever. And like, you don't have to have the Bob the Builder or Barbara the Builder thumb to make this work. The analogy is really, I mean, the crux of this is just that if she at 45, or excuse 45, 55, right? 56,
Yeah.
is not dependent on her flight attendant job to give her the exercise, which arguably her steps being at like 15,000 plus a day or more than most
Right.
people get anyways. If that is not an excuse to try to tap out and say you don't need to work out, then I don't know what is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my dad's the same way. He walks 3 miles, 4 miles a day probably, and still works out 3 days a week.
Yeah,
Same
man.
with my mom.
It's ridiculous, right? And look at how your mom and dad look.
Right. No surgeries, no like serious illnesses or anything. Like,
Well, and your mom and dad don't look 15 years older than they are. They look younger
no.
than they are by
Right.
far.
Oh yeah, 100%. I see like people that are my mom's age that, you'd never know that they were the same person or the same age.
Yeah. And so I don't want to beat a dead horse. So we'll
Yeah.
probably end it there. But your workout is not your job. Your job is not your workout. Get your ass moving, have some personal responsibility, and understand that you're not going to be perfect. You're injured, right? You're sick. We get it. I don't expect you to throw weight over your head when you have a bad back. I don't expect that. I don't expect you to do that when you can't keep food down. But when you're back to healthy or to healthy enough where it's safe and you're not going to regress if you start moving, start moving.
Right.
Start moving.
100%.
So hope that helps y'all. We're going to stop the live and then we will stop the recording. Boom. And so anyone that's still listening to this, if you want to get in touch with us, Facebook group that we just live stream this in is a great place to do that, or on Instagram or Facebook at Coach Brett Owens or James M. Gillespie. And otherwise, we will see you next time.
Later.